we are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
That we must see. Now is the time, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Welcome to Malcolm and We, and it's We the World, which is an international organization that actually they adopt various groups and help them out that are trying to make the world a better place. And this is myself, Malcolm Berman. It's my co-host on top, Jana Larson. And Jana, introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you, Malcolm, and welcome, Birgit. This week we have one of our volunteers with We the World. She is our event coordinator, and even though we haven't had a whole lot of events lately, she's still our event coordinator. Thank you, Birgit. Anyway, Birgit Ben Eli is German. She has studied many places in Berlin, Vienna, Jerusalem. She's lived in 7 countries, and she has a family on 5 continents. Mostly for her paid working experience, she's worked in the art field for museums, auction houses, and art companies, but also for film projects. She has worked lately in the past 2 years independently as a writer, an art language consultant, and translator. And of course, she's also volunteered as the busy mom that she's been. Mostly with children and in schools, but also with the elderly and mentally disabled people. She has lived for almost 21 years in the USA, in New York City, and she is married to a doctor. So I want to hear more about that. Welcome, Birgit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah.
So Malcolm, you and Birgit have something in common, having been, for you, Malcolm, coming from New York City.
Yeah, I lived on the, well, you said you lived on the Upper East Side. I'm an Upper West Side person.
I understand.
You're talking about being eclectic. Yeah, the Upper West Side, at least 40 years ago, but when I lived there, it was very eclectic.
I think it still is, but it's very interesting. Again, we used to live in downtown Manhattan. I think, for us, it was very interesting to move uptown, and I think it doesn't make much of a difference to Upper West Side or Upper East Side. You feel like in terms of mix of people, there's more diversity in downtown. The same like with Brooklyn. There's more, very often we venture out to Brooklyn. There's a lot more diversity than on the Upper West or Upper East Side. So, however, which is very interesting. So my 20 years, the friends or acquaintances or people I usually spoke to, they had some international background. There was the past neighborhood. And now after almost 21 years, for the first time, I keep meeting real New Yorkers, born New Yorkers. So that's a very interesting part for me now after living for 20 years in New York. Yeah.
I'm not from New York City, so I always hear about the west side and the east side and the upper east side and all that. Is there a reference to the north side and the south side?
Not really. Yeah.
Well, not really, but I think But listen again. That's New York. That's New York. New York is very transient, so it always changes. But I think downtown probably changes more because on the Upper West and Upper East Side, you have the New Yorkers who live here already for generations. At least 1 or 2. So, and they are stable. They're not moving. I was actually just this morning talking with a friend of mine who, she lives in downtown now, but she grew up on the Upper West Side, and her friends are still in New York, while our environment is like a coming and going. And I think that's, in some ways, it's very special about the Upper West and Upper East Side that, you have a sense of community with those who always lived here. But our sense of community was being in a kind of international community where, friends come and go, for better or for worse.
Well, it depends on where you live, or the 2 key words for New Yorkers: rent control. Yeah. If you live into rent control, you do not move.
I agree with you. but this doesn't exist anymore since the 90s, correct? I mean, it's very, very hard to find a rent controlled apartment. I think rent control doesn't even exist anymore.
No. When someone moves, I think the rent control is out, and a lot of the rent control places became co-ops.
Yeah.
Because that's where my brother lived on 74th Street and West End Avenue.
Oh, there
And
you
his
go.
place became a co-op.
You see, in this friend of mine is 72nd and West End or Riverside Drive, so very close by.
Yeah, that's I mean, I still miss Manhattan, but I miss Manhattan as a 30-year-old single man. I don't know how I would enjoy it as a 70-year-old married person.
You know,
I think
it's interesting that you say that. I was just thinking about that. I agree with you. New York is a place for younger people in their 20s or 30s, and it's very exhausting as a family. Because of all the schools and there are a lot of, I mean, you know this, it's a big city there and it's a diverse city. So there are a lot of, it comes with a lot of positive. That's why everyone loves New York, the diversity, but it also comes, with a lot of problems at the same time. And, as a family, it's exhausting. And as a 70-year-old, I must, what I like actually about the Upper East Side, I suddenly meet elderly people, and since we have a dog, they often talk to me, and I kind of enjoy. I mean, elderly. I'm sorry, I don't want to insult you. 70 is the new 50. But I like that having more, before we had the international diversity and now I have more the age diversity. And I kind of enjoy that too, I must say. My daughter too, she went to a place, to a restaurant or something. And then she told me that she saw an elderly person there sitting there by herself. And she was thinking of inviting that person to join her for lunch. And I loved that, And I told her, she was a bit shy about this. So I told her next time, just do it, I mean, just invite.
Yeah, but as I say, the important thing about actually being in New York, being in LA, or being any place is when you see people, you say hello.
No,
you break the sound barrier.
Listen,
you know, like even when I go into elevators.
But I think in New York,
I speak to people.
I do that too, I must tell you, and I always knew my neighbors. It's the first time that I see less neighbors. But the interesting part is a few weeks back, that was interesting. A taxi stopped and two elderly ladies tried to get into the taxis, and it was one of the higher ones, and one of them couldn't get in. But the taxi driver was just sitting there, and I didn't understand why he wasn't getting out of the taxi, helping her. So despite having the dog pulling me in one direction, I helped that lady into the taxi. And I cannot believe how thankful she was that in a way that it's like, this doesn't happen. And I'm like, and I was thinking for myself, how sad that is, that we are so involved in our own lives that we don't even realize anymore what's going on around us, that we might step in for little things. There was something little, and she was thanking me, oh my God, that never happened to me, you're so nice, etc., etc. And I mean, we all know this, little things, as you said, the hello, or helping this lady into a taxi.
Right.
Little things that make already such
or opening a door for someone.
Yeah.
Or help them.
Malcolm. Malcolm was he grew up in Coney Island back in the days of the covered wagon, almost. I know Malcolm, so I can joke with him. And now he's in LA, and to me, I would think that it's not a culture shock as far as going to a big city, but I mean, things are just more distant, right? In LA, Malcolm?
Yeah, well, one time they asked me, they say, how could you move to LA, from, you lived in Manhattan. Well, when we talk about living in the city, we talk about living in Manhattan. That's a city to New Yorkers. I said, well, LA has the same thing that the city does, except you go down from San Diego, go to Santa Barbara, you go from the ocean to the mountains, and you squish it into one island. And you have Manhattan. They have the same things, except you have to drive 200 miles to get there.
Yeah, but some friends who did live in LA, they told me you basically choose your neighborhood, and that's what, listen, at the end of the day, it's the same like if you live in Manhattan, right? If you're on the Upper West Side, you have the Upper West Side community. We had for 20 years our community in downtown Manhattan, and we barely, I mean, I did venture out, obviously, but at the end, our entire community was there, and it's actually amusing in some ways. So I do have friends here, from other places who live on the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, wherever they lived before. And they are, from abroad as well. And it's kind of funny, ironic that in the city, we never found the time to meet, but then we meet when we are both in Berlin at the same time or wherever we are. Or last year when we were in Israel, we met our friends from New York, from different parts of New York City. While being in the city, we don't find time for each other. It's like interesting if we are out of our neighborhood. And I would assume that LA, and that's what I was told, is partly the same, that you live in a neighborhood and, and again, you might venture out, but in general, you stay where you live and work.
Yeah, well, generally, it's also it's very important where you work. You spend so many hours, spend more hours, your waking hours at work than you do at home. But anyway,
yeah.
Getting back to your affiliation with We the World, what do you do? I mean, professionally.
Professionally, so by profession, I'm an art historian, and for many years I was working in different museums, auction houses, galleries. I was working for an art company as a program director. I lived in Budapest for a few years, where I used to be an editor for a newspaper. I participated in creating documentaries on artists. When we moved to New York, I needed the independence because we had parents that were ill and getting elderly. So one of us, if you care for your family, and we do, needed the flexibility and independence. So I started working as I was translating, I was still writing, I was still giving lectures, and I was a proofreader. But I did it independently because I needed to be flexible for our family. So I was the one who traveled back and forth or spent the summer, with the grandparents of our kids or with our parents. And so that's what I did back then. Now I'm ready to get back in and become more, do more, do something else. To look more for more of a connection. That's how I actually did get into We the World, because I was looking for an organization like We the World that, like a little universe, and embraces all and connects the stars. And I loved that idea. And I loved that idea especially because I have this international background and I have international experience. So We the World really spoke to me. And since I used to also organize, different events at school, and also, related to, family events or friends events, I like the idea of becoming an event coordinator for We the World. And but I think We the World is. Go ahead, Jana.
Oh, I was going to say, we just haven't really been able to tap into all that Birgit can offer us, because it seemed like right after you joined, Birgit, Rick had his heart attack, and then he spent like 14 months in and out of the hospital with his heart attack and stroke and this and that. And so that's why this year is a year of we call it our shells being closed for remodeling. But we have big plans for what we're going to be doing, and Birgit's going to be a huge part of that, because he has so many talents and so such amazing background. And again, the cultural thing, because we're global, and just I just can't even imagine what all your background is like. You just must have so many amazing stories of where all you've been, and then your experiences being a busy mom and being able to spend time with your children and traveling back and forth, and your life as wife of a busy doctor. So just all those worlds that you're a part of. I live in the middle of a cornfield. The closest gas station is 9 miles away. I'm divorced. I'm just kind of by myself a lot. The most exciting part of my life is in the summer, when I can be out in my
the most
yard.
Important part, the most exciting part of your life is you're doing the show with us.
Malcolm and We. Yeah, I'm talking to you every day, and you're telling me all your ideas.
Well, not me.
Like,
the many people.
Calm down.
the many people that we meet.
Yes.
If you see the show,
that's exciting.
If you see our shows, we've spoken to people from around the world.
That's the beauty of technology, that we can all connect. And I must tell you, and that's again also part of the reason why I'm into this now. And so I must say, We the World has an amazing team, and I love you really all, and I enjoy, whenever I do join, or whenever there is some communication.
There will be.
I know, but I'm just saying I enjoy the team, and there's such generosity and will to help and do and change, and that's how I feel too. I want to do change, and I want to work in an amazing team, and my international background also taught me, it doesn't matter if you're in Ohio and you don't travel, but having been in different countries or lived in different countries, it teaches you that we all have the same dreams, we all have the same concerns, and I love the idea I love that We the World tries to work on, tries to embrace all, because there's so many problems going on. There's so many issues we have to work on. But on the one hand, there are issues, but on the other hand, there are people who share something. And it doesn't matter if they sit in Ohio, if they sit in Manhattan or in Botswana. And I love connecting, that we all connect and try to do something. And again, having been in different countries, it doesn't matter where you are, we share so much, but we usually don't know if we don't experience. I mean, now it's different with the Zoom and technology, but if you hear the news, you don't hear the good news, so many of us develop a perception about a different place without really knowing the place, and place with everything that comes around, culture, people, whatever, mentalities. But again, once you're there, you see, we are not much different. And I think it's We the World, with their work, emphasizes that too, that we all have the same goals at the end of the day, that it's not one against the other, it's one with it's a one with the other.
Yeah. And I like that. Sorry, now can I get jumping all over you? But what I like is that there's whatever you want to do, you can do it with us, and we'll find a way, because we like to be really creative. And I remember a while back, Birgit asked me, now I'm trying to understand this, like what
is happening?
Do you guys do? What exactly does, like what about Rick? And I said, well, here's what you do. Put Rick, have a big piece of paper, you put Rick in the middle, and then you just start drawing arrows out from everything.
Radiates around him.
Yeah, exactly. There's just like, he's just like, everything's in orbit around, because we're a nonprofit organization that helps other nonprofit organizations, because it's I call it the we wave, because we see all these people and organizations doing amazing, wonderful things, and that you don't necessarily hear about. Like there's one of the major news channels tries to end with a little, like human note of, that's just very, like person-centered, or just like what one person did, or what one kid did, or one, this a random act of kindness kind of idea. And, that's just what it is. It's just a lot of that going on, and you don't necessarily know about it. And for me, it brings such hope to me that there's a lot positive going on, especially after, with war, the pandemic, and all that. And yet I can still be very engaged with people around the world and meet amazing people like Birgit. And it's a fabulous experience. And that's what we're trying to do with Malcolm.
That's what we're trying to do is, my experience is communications. I've been in radio and television, and now in the internet and streaming. And what I want to bring is people like yourself into the forefront, to meet people, to communicate who you are, to communicate your experience. In fact, I'd like to do, we'll speak off camera about how we could bring art. I believe art is a great a common denominator.
That's true. It's like music.
I mean, once you take the pretension out of art, and yeah, you have
Yes.
this, and make it okay. How does it make you feel? To me, that's what art is.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, art is, to me, is something that supposed to you're supposed to respond emotionally. How does it make you feel
But it's
if you
not
see a piece of art?
It's inspiring, and and it can be reactive too.
Right, and that's what I want to do with my shows. And again, we could do an adjunct with you as far as within the art world, which again,
Yeah.
would love that.
I find the people such as yourself that are really into. I'm not into art, I have to say. I'm not. But when I speak to someone like you who reviews a piece of art, all of a sudden I see so many different things in that one piece.
You
Yeah,
know
that
what?
you may not have appreciated before. Like I was never like, I mean, ever since I like to watch movies. I think you can learn a lot from movies. And yeah, maybe there's some parts that aren't true, but whenever it brings something alive, as a person, like when I think about Jackson Pollock and I find out about his life and and what an amazing event that was in the art world for what he did. Someone like my father would have said, but then when you really learn about it, it opens a whole new world. And now street art, graffiti, and I've been really noticing that around the world in different cultures, like if you go to there are the places like in Paris and in South America, wherever, that have these great displays. But when you learn about it, it's amazing.
I agree. Art is how it makes you feel, and that art is like any form of art. It doesn't matter if it has to be it's visual art, music, or whatever. It's about how it makes you feel. But how I got into art is I used to write, and I think that has a lot to do probably the way I used to live. When I wrote my PhD, I wrote about Jewish
You have a
artists.
doctorate? Oh my gosh!
What happened?
I said, you have a doctorate?
I did not finish it because my mother fell terminally ill, and then I had to. It was too difficult. But that's not. But I was a PhD candidate, and I used to give lectures. And what I wrote about was the concept of home, because I used to live in different countries, and that brings us back also to We the World again. That at the end of the day, the concept of home is not a physical place. We share so much more than what goes beyond the country. And but to me, art, and I miss this sometimes when I look at exhibitions, and I have these conversations with friends too. Art is sending a message too, and that's how I wrote about when I did my PhD, and I published about stuff about that too. Art is, for me, the artist tries to tell us something, and the artist is a reflection of their reflection of their time. And so I always loved art from the more of a sociological perspective or historical perspective. If you go back in time, I used to write about women artists back then, which now everyone talks about it, and now there's more of a focus. It doesn't matter if it's Mendelssohn's wife or Schumann's wife, Clara Schumann, or as you just said, you hear something about Pollock's wife. But it wasn't always. So back then, many years ago, I used to write about women artists which were just disappeared in history and never had a voice. And I loved giving them a voice. And also with the Jewish artists, they all disappeared, and I loved giving them a voice. And I love to understand about, in my context, being, about the Habsburgs. So I wrote about Austrian, Hungarian, German artists until the end of World War I, and German actually later. I used to write for, there's a Jewish encyclopedia in Jerusalem I used to write for. And so it was even for later.
How many languages do you speak?
Listen, so the languages I still speak are Hebrew, English, and German. I used to speak a lot more, but I live for over 20 years here. And even though we travel a lot, I used to speak Italian. I used to speak, French. I used to speak Dutch. I even used to take Yiddish at the Hebrew University, where the teachers always, oh, you can read because you know German and Hebrew. So Hungarian, but I used to have 8 or 9. Forget the Latin is passive anyhow, but I forgot most of them are passive, because I live here for almost 21 years, and it's very difficult to keep up, at least for me. Not everyone is like that. It's very
Yeah,
difficult.
it's not like riding a bicycle after a few years.
I know
you lose it.
their languages, but for me, the last time I remember I was just talking to someone in Italy, and I wanted to order something, and it came out in half Hungarian, half German, half English, half Italian. I'm like, oh my God. I mix them all up, but I'm curious. I love exploring. I have curiosity, and I love people, and I love my sister once, being in Germany, said, do you talk to everyone? I said, yes, because I love communication, and I'm interested in people, and I love to hear their stories. And that's why I learned languages too, and that's why I lived in different countries, because I think it's a matter of curiosity, and I love the intellectual exchange. I love the cultural exchange, and language allows you to take part in a country much more than if you don't know the language, obviously.
And you picked a good field, because language and art go hand in hand. Because if you see the art of the society, it tells you a lot about the people.
That's true. But I agree with that. It tells you a lot. But
I worked on my Finnish this morning.
Worked on what?
I worked on my Finnish this morning.
On your Finnish?
How is your Finnish?
I'm teaching it's one of the 18 languages I'm trying to teach myself. But here's the thing. I work on it and I go, oh, okay, I'll remember that. And then by the end of the day, I've completely forgotten it.
You know what? Listen, we live in a very large country here, and it's and I'm telling you, so I have friends who moved for a few years to London. They said, oh, every European knows 3 or 4 languages, but it's easy. It's a small continent. And whenever I speak to my family, oh, I'm Barcelona currently, oh, I'm in Venice. So it's very easy if you live in Europe to know languages, because it's a small continent. And that's why I said most of my languages are passive now. But it's funny, I never, for example, had Spanish, but my entire family claims they speak Spanish. But when we were in Mexico City and sitting somewhere and someone was talking to us, they addressed me because I understood what they were saying because of the languages I know. And my family's like, what did she say? What did she say? But the only thing is I couldn't answer because because I'd never learned Spanish in my life, but I could understand her. And, I have funny anecdotes. I used to live in Italy. I used to live, with a Japanese and someone from Rome. And then once her boyfriend came, who actually was at Oxford and taught himself Japanese, he spoke fluently. That Japanese turned around on the street. But people told me, how do you understand her? And I had this with others too. But because I lived in many countries, because I used to know languages, and maybe having experience with people, I often know what people try to say without even others being able to understand them.
Because of cognates.
Yeah,
a lot of times you think cognates.
So everyone is like, no one understands her English. How do you understand? I said, I know what she wants to say, because it's not only because I spoke languages, I know what it means to be in a country and learn a language,
Yeah, immerse yourself.
Oh my God, I have to,
Your phone's ringing.
My phone is ringing. And I have to text my daughter. Sorry about that.
So how many children do you have?
I have 2 children. The oldest one is in college now at Northeastern, starting her year in California. She's in Oakland, outside of San Francisco. Because that's what Northeastern does. They want to have the global approach. I'm saying now like this because she's in California, which is in that sense not global. But she had the option to go to London or to California. And I told her, Europe inside out. You've been there many times. You've never been to California. Try California. So she's finishing her semester at the end of April. She's doing neurology and pre-med. And my younger one, she's here in 9th grade now on the Upper East Side. I have great kids. I have really great kids. Everyone says that, but my older one, she took an ethics class. And, the professor said immediately, are you a pre-law? She says no. So she's a very critical, logical thinker, and she's so kind. And you know what? I remember when I used to give her pocket money, and, people are amazing. And our neighborhoods, it was so small, so she gave away her pocket money to homeless, or she was carrying an elderly lady's, shopping bags home. She said, oh, I still remember you when you were that little, random people texted me and said, oh, your daughter's just amazing. She was the only one who went to my child who fell and no one else. And I know these teens in the neighborhood. So I must say, I'm not saying that was my job, but she's an amazing kid. She's very
well. There's some good
socially
mothering
appropriate.
happening there, Birgit.
Very, very happy. Sometimes I think she gives, what I'm saying, it's interesting. Now I have to tell her, you have to think about yourself too, because only if you are grounded, you can really help others. If you cannot
That's true.
help others and forget about yourself, if she's very giving. So that's my oldest. My younger one's a teenager, so that's
that says it all. But I'll say if you would take care of We the World, and take care of it like you took care of raise your children. We the World has a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, that's very
absolutely.
sweet.
But anyway, is there a way of you have since we're almost out of time? Is there a way of contacting? Do you have a website or
I don't
email
have a
address?
website, but I can send you. You know what? You want me to add the email here? And here I add my email. Wait, I have the We the World email at my private email.
She's on Basecamp. That's our management
I am
software.
at Basecamp too.
She can ping you, Malcolm.
You can ping me.
Okay. Yeah, I put my phone number down too.
Yeah, ping me, because I guess I say I'd like to get together with you to see if we could do an offshoot of this show.
I would love that, actually. That's a wonderful idea.
Based on art.
No, that would be
Yes.
very, actually. I would love
And Brigitte, we have a 12th campaign and a 13th campaign that you may not know about, but our 12th campaign is called Media, Culture, and the Arts, and I'm really trying to grow that. And it's called Media, Culture, and the Arts, and I'm really trying to grow that because I do think that really helps connect all the things together. And our 13th, which I'm going to get going, is called Ethics, Values, and Spirit. So again, part of our remodeling project with We the World, we're going to get those going because it helps bring everything together.
Anyway, guys, it's the end of a show. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll probably speak to each other a lot more.
Oh yeah, remember, me to we.
And you're listening to Malcolm and We, heard on malcolmpresents.com. All our shows are archived and on demand, so you could see it anytime you want. You wake up in the middle of the night, you can't go back to sleep, go to malcolmpresents.com and see our shows. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you next. See you next week. Bye. Bye.
Ciao.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.